When I had my near-death experience, I was 19 years old at the time. It was normal practice at my new duty station in Oregon to participate in activities in the great outdoors with my fellow employees. I found myself in Oregon. The Morale, Welfare, and Recreation Office at NAVFACQ's had encouraged all military members and their families to participate in activities and outings that were both fun and interesting. We were able to rent all-terrain vehicles, recreational vehicles, camping gear, paddle boards, boats, fishing gear, and surfing equipment. Additionally, MWR provided a vast selection of sporting activities as well as weekend tickets to a variety of events. One of the activities that they provided was a day excursion during which participants may go whitewater rafting on the Rogue River. Although I found it intriguing, I wasn't very good at swimming. As soon as everyone in my watch section committed to going whitewater rafting, the pressure began to mount on me to sign up for the excursion. In spite of my misgivings, I went ahead and bought a ticket so that I could accompany my coworkers on their May River trip on the Rogue. Because spring had arrived and begun melting the snow in the mountains, the current during that particular year was historically stronger and moved at a faster rate than usual. In an inflatable Seveler one-person kayak, I navigated the Class 2 and 3 rapids without incident during the morning. The paddling seemed natural, and both the flow of the water and the talk that was going on around me were quite laid back. The great majority of the rapids could be navigated with relative ease. Before continuing on our journey to much more difficult areas of the river, we had a short rest break and stopped at midday to have lunch on the bank and take some time to relax. Following a few of less challenging rapids in Mule Canyon, our guide guided our company into the Rogue River's most treacherous section, which is called Blossom Bar. The river's Class IV rapids were difficult to navigate due to the presence of several large rocks and vortices that resembled holes. I had to execute a vital left-to-right paddling maneuver in order to avoid being washed into a lineup of rocks known as the picket fence when I took the conventional path through the churning water to pass the boulders. This approach took me through the turbulent water and around the boulders. My inability to do that task in a timely manner resulted in my colliding with the stones and rolling out of the kayak into the icy water below. Despite the fact that I was wearing a life vest, the current nonetheless managed to pull me into a raging hole filled with choppy water. I was taken aback by how cold the water was, which prompted me to gasp, and when I did so, river water entered my lungs to a significant degree. While I was in the water, I got disoriented and lost my sense of spatial direction. I was able to make out the clouds in the sky above, but I couldn't get to the surface to breathe. My lungs began to burn as the feeling of terror spread throughout my body as the current continued to pull me down. I had an instantaneous realization that I was going to pass away there, and the last thing I can recall saying is, "God, please save me." I was deprived of oxygen, and as a result, I became weaker until I ultimately quit struggling altogether. I passed out in the pitch blackness of the water, and all of a sudden, I was no longer able to feel the stinging and aching sensation that the water caused in my lungs. It seemed like the blackness all around me was turning absolutely white, and it felt like I was moving down a tunnel at the speed of light. As the agony subsided, I was filled with warmth and a sense of harmony with both myself and the world around me. Love that was unconditional and unadulterated emanated in all directions, even inside myself. I didn't know where it came from, but love wrapped itself around me like a cozy blanket. As I emerged from the tunnel, I became conscious of the areas of my body, such as my hands, arms, and chest, that were visible to others. When I looked down, I couldn't make out anyone's feet. I did see a glowing silver cable that was tied to my body, and it seemed to glow from within. When I turned to look around, I noticed that the room I was in had the appearance of being made of pure white clouds, but was actually not solid. There were 3 entities that were formed of crystal, and they were sparkling. They acted like a glass prism, allowing light to pass through them and create a rainbow. Although the largest of the 3 communicated to me, the other 2 also sent their message. They appeared to be aware that I was terrified of them, and I confessed to them that I was. Instantaneously, they changed into beings that I immediately recognized as angels. They did not have bird wings, rather, they had fibers that were fashioned like wings and were similar to fiber optic cables. When pure light passed through the fibers, it formed colors in a wide range of tones. Whenever they communicated, their thoughts were sent telepathically. They were able to know what I was thinking. When I looked into their eyes, the colors were vivid and powerful, shifting and changing as if they were being charged by electric sparks. It was almost as if I were viewing a DVD that was still spinning as it was being played in the player. And the love that they felt for me shone brightly in their eyes, making me feel as if I were the most priceless thing that God had ever brought into being. It seemed as if they knew me on a personal level, yet I didn't feel awkward despite having the impression that they did. You have arrived too soon. The time has not yet come for you to be here, the bigger angel remarked. The time has not yet come for you to be here. You have no choice but to return to Earth and complete what you started there. However, since you are here, we shall demonstrate certain things to you. The larger angel appeared to be holding a large book, but the pages of the book resembled pictures rather than text. I was shown scenes from my life, beginning with the time my mother conceived me and ending with the moment I was thrown from the kayak into the river. It was almost like watching a movie with how quickly the pages turned. Suddenly, I was brought back to all of the things that I had done for other people, or all of the things that I had neglected to do for other people. They showed me a man I was unfamiliar with, the features of whose face I could not make out very well as several children who had not yet been born. One of the more little angels spoke forward and stated, "I am Yashael. Since the beginning of time, I have been at your side, and I will continue to do so for all of eternity. You have no choice but to go back. They need you to be there for them. After I have shown you what you have to look forward to up until then, you will need to return to your body." Almost immediately, Yashael and I found ourselves transferred to the very heart of an enormous golden plain. I was able to hear the most gorgeous music, and I could feel it going through me at the same time. When the air brushed up against the tall, golden wheat stalks, I could sense the spirit of everything that was alive in my immediate environment, including the animals, plants, and elements. I was of the same mind as them. I felt God's presence touch my flesh as I glanced up into the sky and saw a massive ball of light that illuminated everything around me in the most pristine and comforting way. He was aware of me and loved me regardless of the imperfections that had been a part of my life on earth. I was entire and whole, and I had no discomfort. When the angel lifted me further higher, I had the impression that I was flying forevermore. I was able to make out a massive cascade that had no beginning and no finish in sight. It was a place where love and serenity predominated. Although I couldn't see them, I could feel the presence of loved ones who had passed away in the past. We went across the golden field, and when we got to the end of it, there was a country gate, and beyond that was an enormous tree with a canopy of gold leaves. When the leaves were rustled by the wind, they would transform into colorful birds of many different species and fly off the branches of the tree. It had a lake next to it, and the water from that lake flowed over into the territory on both sides of the line. When I glanced down into the water, I saw that it had a sheen to it, similar to that of liquid mercury. However, if you look through it, you will be able to see people who are now alive on earth. Yashael spoke to him once again, saying, "I have been with you from the beginning of time, and I will continue to be with you for all of eternity. You are unable to get beyond the barrier. It is time for you to return to your life on planet Earth at this point. You have some job that has to be completed beforehand. The disappointment I felt at having to leave that location is difficult to put into words." I broke down into tears and pleaded with him to let me remain. He promised that he would return for you at the appropriate moment. However, now and with that, he dragged my spirit back into my earthly body with such power that it popped me clear of the stone pit that I was locked in under the ocean. I had been there for quite some time. As I heaved a frightened gulp of air in and struggled for breath, all of the water that I had just breathed exploded out of my lungs. I was almost instantly aware of the agony in my chest, as well as the hand of a rescuer holding me by the back of my life vest. I was being pulled to safety. After I came close to knocking him out of his kayak, another person in a larger water boat hauled me up into the boat and brought me back to this earthly realm. It took me a very long time to figure out why I am in this place, and even now I still wonder, why me? After coming so close to dying in the Rogue River, I decided to do some study on the river. Since my near-death experience, over 21 individuals have passed away at Blossom Bar. They were killed, but I managed to stay alive. My near-death experience has brought me closer to God, and it has opened my eyes to the fact that life is not a chain of outcomes, but rather a series of parallels and decisions. The people around me are immediately impacted by my decisions, and our relationships are intricately intertwined. My destiny had not yet been decided. It would be several years before I understood that I was supposed to help people regain their health. Following my near-death experience, my psychic talents improved significantly. I now have clairvoyance, claircognizance, and empathic abilities. I am able to hear the voices of people who reside beyond the veil, but I have not yet taught myself to see spirit clearly with the eyes that I was born with. My near-death experience was and will continue to be the most profound event I've ever experienced on a metaphysical level. Because my words cannot do justice to everything that I saw, felt, and heard during my excursion into a heavenly dimension, I was moved to tears when I wrote my remembrance of my experience. Even though I don't practice any religion, my near-death experience has brought me closer to the spiritual world than ever before. I am aware that there are realms other than this one, and that there is a purpose for my being in this one. I came here for a reason, and I want to stay until that reason is satisfied.